A new law will go into effect August 1st here in Minnesota that will make it illegal for anyone under the age of 21 to buy or possess kratom, often sold at tobacco shops and even convenience stores. I could describe to you what this is, but I think our next guest does it even better. So let's bring in John Pools. He's a psychotherapist and addiction specialist. John, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Courtney.
Okay, so what is kratom?
So kratom is essentially it's a leaf that is predominantly taken to either increase energy, or in lower doses it increases energy, and higher doses it produces more of a sedating and opioid-like effect. And then, of course, there's a distinction between kratom leaf versus the more extracted, concentrated versions of it, like 7-OH, which has gotten a lot of increased attention lately.
So how does it get you high? I mean, what does it do? It sounds to me like it's similar to an opioid, but because it comes from a leaf sourced out of Southeast Asia, that it's somehow legal, but it sounds like it's almost like a synthetic opioid.
Yeah, so it has very opioid-like effects. So, somebody that's consuming it, they'll have very recessed or pinned pupils. They'll often be witnessed nodding out. They may be scratching due to the histamine being released. So you'll notice it looks very similar to somebody being on opioids. It's typically consumed in a tea, so often served at kava bars, or you can buy it over the counter at gas stations. And it comes either in the kratom leaf version, which is less intoxicating, less dangerous, but still causes risks, or it comes in a more concentrated form and an even more deadly and concerning form, which is the 7-OH, which is the extreme concentration and one of the alkaloids of kratom that actually causes significant intoxication. And many users describe it very similar to strong opioids like OxyContin or heroin.
So how is this not listed as a Schedule II substance? I mean, how is this stuff legal?
Well, so there's been a big push for it to be scheduled. There's a potential national ban on 7-OH, which again has been causing much more issues. Truly, the reason it hasn't been scheduled is that many people report benefits of it. They report it as an alternative to opioid-based painkillers. Many people use it that were previously addicted to substances like heroin. So there's actually pretty large national advocacy groups that push for it not to become a scheduled substance and to keep it unregulated.
Interesting. All right. So here in Minnesota, starting August 1st, so just in about a week, you're going to have to be 21 to buy or possess it. And if they catch you possessing it under the age of 21, or if they catch somebody selling this to somebody under the age of 21, they will face penalties. Where does Minnesota stand compared to, have other states already done this? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so the regulation is all over the map. So it's either you have a age restriction ban, right? So over the age of 21, which quite frankly, I think is the bare minimum that should be done. Some states have enacted a complete and total ban of kratom and any related alkaloids. Some states have banned 7-OH, as I mentioned before, the really strong concentrated alkaloid that's been causing a lot more issues. Or some states, like I mentioned, they have complete bans, or some have absolutely no regulation on it whatsoever. And so what we see is the drug policy is kind of all over the map, because on the federal level, it has not become a scheduled or banned substance yet.
So this makes no sense to me. I mean, so this product can just show up in the United States, get kids hooked, and it's not regulated at all?
It's really not. It's all very state by state. And you raise an excellent point about getting people hooked. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is you can absolutely get a physical dependence on kratom. So what that means is that if you're consuming it daily, near daily, over weeks, months at a time, you will start to experience withdrawal effects very similar to opioids like OxyContin and heroin. You may get upper GI issues, heart palpitations, sweating, cold sweats, and just general severe withdrawal symptoms, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and that stays for quite some time until the substance is completely out of your system.
Clearly, you're worried about this substance. Have you treated people who actually get addicted to this?
Yeah, so what we're seeing more and more now is that people are actually entering into inpatient addiction treatment facilities or residential detox facilities for solely kratom use, right? And so what that means is that they may not even be using any other substances, but the reason that they're seeking addiction treatment in general is either because of the concentrates like 7-OH or the kratom leaf.
My mind is blown because I'm like, how do we get here where, you can't buy alcohol unless you're 21. You've got, other drugs that are on the street that sound very similar to this, and they are fully illegal no matter what your age. So anytime, I mean, I don't, how do we end up here where something can pop up on the market and it's allowed to be sold at gas stations, at convenience stores, at tobacco shops?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, drug policy always takes a long time to catch up to where it should be. And so we have a long history in the United States with that. And I think it's just generally not as recognized of a substance. I mean, I've been seeing issues with kratom for well over a decade. And I would say I've just now started to see it being discussed in media and other outlets, and largely because of the proliferation of kratom throughout the United States and the subsequent related overdoses and tragedies that have happened. So now it's finally getting more media attention. That said, I think it's going to take quite some time to actually catch up to what the regulations should be for the substance.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I just started hearing about it in the last year or so. So, do you think this will make any bit of difference, putting an age limit on who can buy it, 21 and over?
Well, so what we know, generally speaking, is that when access is increased, use increases. So we can look at that with the legalization of both medical cannabis and recreational cannabis, that once access increases, use increases. So on some level, the age restriction will reduce access. That said, it's kind of like a Band-Aid on a broken leg. I don't think it's going to cause that much interruption into the use and access of it, especially considering there are many online shops that you can just order it directly to your home, and all you have to do is confirm that you're over the age of 18 or over the age of 21.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Will this law in Minnesota permit sellers from out of state shipping it to homes in Minnesota?
So this is what I can tell you. I'm not sure what the actual legal regulations of that are, but what I can tell you is that people ship banned substances into other states all the time with virtually no problem.
Wow. What concerns you the most about this kratom?
So what concerns me the most are the concentrates. And I've mentioned this before, and I think it's really important to identify for users or anybody that may be experimenting with this, is that there's a very strong distinction between the kratom leaf tea, we'll call it classic kratom, and extracts and concentrates such as 7-OH, which is an alkaloid in kratom. And the 7-OH in those concentrates are much more dangerous and have been related to overdose deaths. Now, the argument against that is most of those cases involve other substances like a benzodiazepine, like Xanax, Valium, Ativan, in combination with the 7-OH. But nevertheless, the overdose death and the risk of intoxication is much more severe with 7-OH. So I would say that those types of concentrates concern me even more than the traditional kratom leaf tea.
Have you seen this as a gateway drug, or do people usually use this and stick with this?
So it really depends. People with a pre-existing opioid use disorder, so they were previously addicted to heroin or OxyContin or fentanyl, will often switch to kratom as kind of an alternative or harm reduction method. In my experience, most of the patients that I treat eventually return to that opioid substance that they were previously using. There are some people that I know that have chronic pain that have just stuck to kratom, and it's not necessarily a gateway drug. I think, again, when I just go back to, regardless of whether or not it's a gateway drug, is that there's inadequate education and restrictions over the drug and the substance. And since there's so much ease of access, the increase of use is occurring and causing really awful outcomes at times.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't think that the 21, making it so that you have to be 21 is good enough. Do you think this should be outlawed completely?
So I certainly don't think that the age restriction is enough. It's a step in the right direction, baby steps, I suppose. As far as it being outlawed completely, I think the best way to start with this would be to outlaw the concentrates or the alkaloid extracts such as 7-OH. I think ultimately a full kratom ban state by state or at the federal level, or it's becoming a scheduled substance, would be the right direction to go in to prevent the harm associated with it. The pushback against that argument is that many people say, well, then they're going to return to traditional opioids, which does happen. But I think we have to find a middle ground to mitigate the risk associated with it.
So interesting. John, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you coming on the show again.
Thanks so much for having me.